Okay, so it's definitely been a little bit, couple months now. I've been working on the RX7, as you can see. Had to pull the engine out, and the car's in the garage now. Engine's out, transmission's out. Tore the engine apart. The reason we tore it out is it was had really low compression in the rear rotor. So the car was still running fine, which is the reason that I got it. But it was really down on power, and it didn't sound it didn't sound like it should have sounded like, and that's due to it having really low compression in one of the rotors, in one of the rotor housings. Yeah, so we pulled the engine apart. The engine came apart fine. We could tell that it had recently been put together. It definitely had a rebuild at some point. What we found was a huge gash here. Right here, there's also a huge chunk missing. This is actually the apex seal that was there. You can see it's got, that part blew away, and then it chipped that part. This whole groove's messed up. This is not usable. This side, not too bad. As you can see though, some probably broken pieces of apex seal, something hit this and scarred up the sides of the rotor, and it really chewed into that piece right there. So that's not usable. Fortunately, we got a new one, and we got new apex seals here, going with the super seals by, I think it's Rotary Aviation, RA super seals. It actually does have scuff marks on it. Yeah, so you can see there are little scuff marks. Something definitely got into the intake, or maybe a piece of broken apex seal, and scarred it up a little bit. That side's probably the worst. There are marks, all over, little chunks of stuff. So what I've done is I have 800 grit sandpaper, and I also have a file that's for a spark plug. And what I'm doing is going in here like this, taking the sandpaper and sanding the inside of the apex seal groove so that the apex seal can even fit in there. Whatever hit this side of the rotor pushed in this wall right here, so that this slot where the apex seal goes is tighter. And so what I'm doing is going in and sanding that down. I have my feeler gauges, everything. I looked up the measurements that everything needs to be at. Just going ahead and really grinding away. I mean, it's 800 grit sandpaper on metal, so it's going to take a while. It's just a really time-consuming process to make these apex seals sit in there ever so smoothly where they don't grab anything, but then they're not too free where there's too much clearance. Really a fine line. Now this is actually the housing that this really beat up rotor was in. When that piece of apex seal broke off, it just dug in right here, really deep. The chrome of this housing and some other bits you can see all over. Even up here on the other side, there's some scarring. So this housing's not usable at all, but that's the damage, and this is the rotor that sat in there, which is kind of cool. Since I'm not using any of this is all basically scrap metal. I don't mind doing this, but it's just kind of cool to see how the engine actually worked. That's spinning in there. I don't know if this is backwards or not. All the apex seals and everything are riding along the inside of this, so the rotor's not actually touching this. Great. This is the rotor that was in the front. I've just marked it with a red zip tie. This was in the front of the engine, and this rotor is perfect. It had great compression. I already clearanced everything. Everything's within spec. I'm going to be reusing the apex seals, all the side seals. I'm getting new springs, reusing the oil control rings and everything, just getting new springs and O-rings for everything. new apex seal springs, reusing the apex seals. I'm trusting everything's gonna work out good because this one had good compression. Then here in the back you can see these are the irons where the rotors, the housing sat in between these, and then this was like the forward and back plate of the rotor. Then I saw this on a video to keep track of stuff, get a little tackle box like this, just mark everything. So this is all my seals are in here. Everything that I'm reusing is pretty much marked. Some of the stuff I'm not reusing is marked. Here are my new RA Super Seals, side seals that I'm reusing, apex seals I'm reusing, old corner seals and springs. Gonna get new corner seals too, and corner seal springs. Here's the eccentric shaft. A little bit of scarring, marking on the where the bearings go, but it's negligible. And then a little bit of blue marking and like some burning. Something was cooking a little bit. So we'll just have to make sure that that oil flowed to everything efficiently. Obviously the rotor, the spins right here. Most likely the eccentric shaft was spinning too fast and there wasn't enough oil. Here I have stationary gears that hold the rotors. The eccentric shaft slips in through there. These bearings are good. I actually have the stationary gears. There's two of them for the car. There's another one back there that originally came with the car, the engine, but the bearings are shot. I don't know if you can see all the chrome in there. They're really worn down, so I was able to pick up new stationary gears with bearings in good condition already in there, so I'm just going to use those. That's cool. And this is the housing, the front housing that I'm reusing. I got a new to me rear housing. Chrome seems okay. There's a little bit of chrome flaking on like the edges at the bottom, just on the edge. No big chatter marks, none of the devil's fingernails. I tried to clean everything up as much as I could. I've been covering everything with towels. They're WD-40ing what I need to. Some of the other engine components are back there. I think there's a alternator, the distributor, all the bolts and everything that held everything together. There's the turbo, just chilling down there. Reusing the flywheel and clutch. I think I need a new clutch and to resurface the flywheel, but that's not really in the budget right now, and it wasn't slipping. Like the clutch, I think it has a decent amount of life left in it, so I'm just gonna slap it back in there how it is, and just, you know, have in the back of my mind that eventually I'll need to replace the clutch, but I'm gonna just beat the crap out of that one. The clutch really wasn't the problem. The engine is actually an S5 Turbo 2 engine, but the housings are from the FD, so the S6 I guess engine. So it's kind of like a hybrid engine, and then this is the Turbo 2 S4 transmission. I believe the S4 has only a few ribs, while the S5 has a lot more ribs right there. So this is the S4. The chassis is an S4, so that makes sense. It's an S4 GTU though, so I think it came with a lot of the turbo stuff, but it didn't come with the 5 lugs or the turbo brakes. But the reason I took the transmission out to clean it, I'm going to be replacing some of the seals that are on the outside. I'm not going to unbolt it anymore. Replace the clutch throwout bearing, pilot bearing, and the eccentric shaft and all that stuff. But the real thing is the shifter assembly actually has a little spring in there that like returns the shifter to neutral, and that spring is broken, so the shifter just really slops around. And the fix to that is to unbolt this panel right here, get the spring out that's broken, put a new spring in there. So that's not going to be too hard. Just had to remove the transmission from the car, but everything's already taken out. So here's the car, you know, engine's out, taped everything up that I can, marked everything where it went. I was able to push the car into the driveway and borrow a friend's pressure washer and pressure wash the engine bay a little bit. Right there is the power steering assembly. Pulled the front bumper off, might try to make a bash bar. Not gonna really put too much effort into cleaning it up anymore because it's gonna get dirty. It's gonna be a drift car, and I just want to get the car on the road. I'm already putting enough time and effort into it. The interior is a piece of crap. Okay, and then I also painted some things that I could. I kind of stopped halfway through. Like, I'm not going to paint the housing or the irons. These things that I did paint were really dirty. Wire wheeled them down a little bit and then slapped some silver paint and gold paint on some of the things. Mostly the water pump neck, air intake, the lower plenum and the upper plenum, the front cover. I think the fuel rails are up there. So just the little things here and there just to clean it up a little bit. It's probably going to look really out of place compared to the rest of the dirty engine bay. And then unfortunately this is the state of the interior. It's completely gutted. Just have like the main dash piece right here. Some of the dash pieces are laying right there. I want to take out all that soundproofing stuff. I heard you can put dry ice on it and it'll be really brittle. But I've taken out all the carpeting. I need to somehow figure out seat rails and seats. But it's going to get seats, a harness. I'm going to get a harness bar, get a new steering wheel, and then get some gauges. Probably just water temperature, oil temperature, maybe oil pressure, boost gauge, air fuel ratio gauge. So it's going to go engine, interior, coils. But yeah, thanks for watching. Just wanted to give you guys a little update of what's going on with the RX7 while you haven't seen it. So the engine rebuild, all the parts are coming soon. I have the money for it. Just need to finish sanding that and then start getting the parts in the mail. I might make a separate video of me sanding down the rotor a little bit just because I've never seen anyone do that. The guy that I got the rotor from told me to do that. I think I have read a little bit something about people, you know, sanding for clearance, but I sanded a lot. The apex seals wouldn't go in there at all. Might need a new rotor, and honestly, if I do need a new rotor, I'm not going to be bummed because that's just going to mean that the build's going to be that much more secure and safe and not, you know, an experiment that might blow up.